My parents refused to pay for my dream college because it's not fair to my sister. They cut me off, funded her cheating, and told everyone I abandoned them. When the truth came out, I didn't say a word. My success spoke loud enough. Hey, Reddit. My family treated my sister like a celebrity and treated me like I was furniture that occasionally paid bills. So I said, cool, enjoy the show, packed my stuff, and built a life without them. Turns out they weren't done being unhinged. Buckle up, this one gets loud. Name's Leon. I'm 26 now, working as a design engineer in a company that actually appreciates having someone who can solve problems without crying about it. I wasn't born with that confidence. I earned it the slow way. But if you want to understand why my patience for disrespect is basically dead, you gotta meet the people who raised me. My parents are Hank and Abigail. Picture two people who think they're running a royal bloodline instead of a normal household. And their chosen heir? My older sister, Ada. According to them, she was basically one miracle short of walking on water. If she blinked, they bragged. If I built something cool, they acted like I was rearranging chairs. She's older, and after a medical leave, our parents never called what it was. Being held back, Ada and I ended up in the same grade. That meant we applied the same year. I wasn't mistreated in the after-school special way. It was quieter. Ada got the spotlight. I got the wall behind the spotlight. She loved it. Attention was her oxygen. I swear she couldn't function unless people were clapping for something she didn't do. Meanwhile, my entire high school life was work mode. I spent late nights in the garage soldering boards, messing with circuits, building dumb prototypes because it helped me breathe. After school, I'd clock into my part-time job, stash whatever money I could, then go home and keep building until the sun hinted at showing up again. I didn't need praise. I just wanted out of that house and into something real. My dream school? This elite engineering program I'd obsessed over since freshman year. The kind of place where people actually build stuff and don't just talk about it. The brochures were taped inside my locker, like some kids' tape band posters. Ada's dream school? Whatever campus looked best on Hank's LinkedIn page. He bragged about her getting accepted months before she even applied. Abigail was the same. She acted like admissions officers were personally begging Ada to bless them with her presence. Ada obviously loved every second of it. She'd walk around telling people which dorm she'd probably pick, even though she hadn't been accepted anywhere. By spring, envelopes started showing up for both of us. This is where Hank and Abigail's favoritism went from annoying to clinically delusional. When I got my first acceptance letter, they didn't congratulate me. They didn't even look up. They just said, "Don't get ahead of yourself. We need to focus on Ada." I didn't argue. It wouldn't have mattered. You can't convince people who already decided what reality is. Then, the big one came. The envelope from my dream school. Partial scholarship. My hands were literally shaking opening it. And I'm not a handshaking type of guy. For the first time in forever, I felt like everything I'd done was actually worth something. I walked into the living room with the letter. Hank was watching TV. Abigail was scrolling her phone. Ada was practicing her future college girl laugh like she was auditioning for some show. I told them. Straight, simple. I got in, and they're giving me a partial scholarship. Nothing. Hank blinked like I'd interrupted a commercial. Abigail said, "That's nice, but let's wait on more important news." Ada rolled her eyes like my achievement was some kind of inconvenience. A few days later, Ada's letters arrived. First one, rejection. Second, rejection. Third, another rejection. Watching her face fall was like watching someone drop their phone in slow motion. She kept mumbling about how they must have mixed up the applications. Hank and Abigail refused to accept it. They tore into every excuse available. The system is broken. Admissions don't recognize real talent. They probably had a quota this year. Anything except, "Our daughter didn't work hard." Ada went full meltdown mode, crying, blaming the universe, blaming teachers, blaming the weather, basically anything that didn't involve looking at her transcript. She kept saying stuff like, "I don't understand how this could happen to me," as if rejection was for peasants. The house basically turned into a pressure cooker. You could feel the anger radiating off my parents like heat lamps. I kept to myself and minded my business, because I already knew this storm was headed in my direction. And I was right. The next morning, Hank walked into the kitchen with this dramatic sigh like he was about to announce a funeral schedule. He leaned on the counter, serious face locked in, and said, "We need a family talk." That was it. No context, no warm-up. Just the tone he uses when he's gearing up to say something stupid. I didn't say anything out loud, but in my head, I just went, "Perfect. Here comes the nonsense." Hank sat at the head, like he paid rent for the air in the room. Abigail had her This is going to hurt me more than you expression locked in, which was always a lie. And Ada? She looked like she was practicing her heartbroken victim face in a mirror all morning. I sat down, mostly because standing would have made it look like I cared. Hank cleared his throat. Leon, we've talked it over. Your acceptance is complicated. I raised an eyebrow. It's college, not a felony. He ignored that. You going to that school right now would make Ada feel small. It would be cruel to take such a big step ahead of her when she's going through something difficult. Ada put her hand to her chest, like she'd been personally wounded by my existence. It's just a lot, Leon. You know how much I wanted my school. I stared at her. Okay, and what does that have to do with mine? She flinched like I threw a brick, which honestly told me everything. Hank leaned in, doing that fatherly voice he uses when he's trying to sound wise instead of controlling. A real man sacrifices for his family. You need to stay home, go to community college, help Ada find her footing. Once she's settled, we can revisit your plans. Abigail chimed in immediately. It's not forever. Just 2 years. Stay close. Don't make your sister feel worse than she already does. I let them talk until they ran out of breath. Then I answered once, clearly, because I'm not the type who repeats himself like a broken speaker. I worked for this. I earned it. The scholarship doesn't wait. And I'm not throwing away my future because Ada didn't get into her school. Abigail stiffened. Leon, don't be selfish. You know how fragile she is right now. Ada sniffed dramatically. You're choosing yourself over your family. You always think you're better. And I laughed once, short and sharp. I don't think I'm better. I think I'm done living in your shadow. Hank's face went red instantly. If you walk away from this family to chase some ego trip, it's not an ego trip, I cut in. It's my life. That pushed him over. He slammed his hand on the table. Then you're on your own. No support. No help. Don't come back asking for anything. I sat back. That's fine. They expected pleading. They expected me to crumble and beg for approval I never got anyway. When I didn't, their expressions cracked. Shock, anger, confusion, like they weren't prepared for a version of me that didn't fold. Abigail crossed her arms. If you leave, don't expect to be part of this family. I shrugged. You made that choice the second you tried to chain my future to Ada's ego. Ada scoffed. See? You always act above us. I looked at her, completely calm. Ada, I didn't take anything from you. You just didn't earn what you thought you were owed. She froze, and for a moment, the whole room stopped breathing. That was the true breaking point. Hank stood up like he wanted to throw me out right then. Abigail grabbed Ada protectively, like I'd said something violent instead of honest. And Ada just glared at me with this mix of hatred and insecurity that I'd seen 1,000 times, but never cared about until now. The meeting ended with them officially declaring I was cut off. No college money, no help, no contact. Just a cold dismissal from the people who were supposed to be in my corner. Graduation week for our class made everything even clearer. During senior week, they went all out for Ada's events. Balloons, gifts, photos with half the extended family. At my actual ceremony, they showed up late, stood in the back, didn't clap, didn't speak to me, and left before I even reached them. It was ridiculous how normal that felt. I packed what I had, mostly tools, clothes, and a laptop that already sounded like it had emphysema, and left for my new campus. No parade, no goodbye, no emotional scene. Just me stepping out the door and not looking back. The first night in my tiny dorm room, I sat on the mattress, looked around, and realized there was no safety net, no backup plan, no one to call if I screwed up. And honestly, for the first time in my life, that felt perfect. My dream school didn't waste time reminding me I wasn't in my hometown anymore. First week, I walked into a physics lecture and heard 3 kids arguing about which private high school produced better Ivy candidates. Meanwhile, I was sitting there with a secondhand backpack that squeaked when I opened it and a laptop that booted slower than my grandma walked. Didn't matter. I didn't come here to compete with trust funds. I came here to work. If they had money, I had stubbornness. That felt like a fair trade. To survive, I stacked jobs like I was collecting them. Morning shift at the dorm desk, tutoring freshmen who didn't know how to open MATLAB, lab assistant hours whenever a professor needed someone to do the work no one else wanted to touch. My schedule looked like a punishment list, but it paid rent and kept me fed. Classes were brutal, but my grades were solid. Eventually, one of the professors pulled me into his research lab after watching me fix a botched circuit in 5 minutes. Then an internship lined up from that connection. Nothing glamorous, but enough to make me feel like I'd finally caught momentum. For a while, things felt almost normal. Tired, but normal. Then Ada had to make sure everyone remembered she existed. One night, around 2 in the morning, I took a break from studying and opened my phone. Bad idea. The first thing on my feed was a massive text wall written by Ada, complete with crying emojis, dramatic line breaks, and the classic "I just want to be honest on here" opener. Her rant went something like, "Leon abandoned the family. He thinks he's better than us. He walked away when we needed him. Some people just don't have loyalty." Dozens of comments. Some were from old classmates who barely knew us, but loved siding with whoever yelled the loudest. Some were mutuals saying, "You deserve better, Queen." A few asked if I'd really run away. I stared at it and snorted. "Wow," I muttered. "Didn't know I died and became a villain off screen." Dark humor kept me from punching a wall, but it stuck in my head longer than I liked. It wasn't the post itself. It was how fast people believed her version. She wrote the script, and I wasn't even in the room to correct it. I went back to studying, because Rent didn't care about my public image. Then my laptop decided to betray me too. The thing had been coughing and wheezing for months. That night, it let out a sad click, screen froze, and then died like it was clocking out permanently. Finals week, projects due, lab reports half written, code half finished, and I had exactly $0 to fix it. I didn't panic. I just stared at it, breathed once, and said, "All right, guess we're doing this the hard way." I lived in the library for the next week. Literally. I slept there between study sessions, used loaner computers that felt older than I was, and tried to rebuild everything I lost. I dug through old drive backups, begged a TA to give me an extension, and worked on restoring my files like I was defusing a bomb. It was survival mode, but I didn't break. I didn't have the luxury to break. By the end of that week, I was running on caffeine, library air, and spite. My eyes looked like I hadn't slept in 10 years, but the work was done. Barely. I walked out of my last exam feeling like a ghost with decent grades. I made it to my dorm thinking I'd finally collapse. Instead, my phone buzzed. Ada. The text read, "I'm nearby. Come outside." I stared at it. Little dramatic for someone who supposedly hated me. I figured it was a prank from her friends, but when I stepped outside, she was standing there, arms crossed, designer jacket, wounded princess expression ready to go. A rideshare sat behind her with its blinkers on. She started with the soft approach. "Mom's been crying. Dad's furious. Are you really going to do this forever?" I leaned against the wall. "You disowned me. Don't act surprised I stayed gone." Her face twisted instantly. "You always had to be better, Leon. You couldn't just let me have my thing." "My thing," I said. "Ada, I didn't take anything from you. You didn't get in. That's your problem, not mine." She stepped closer, voice rising. "You wanted me to fail. You liked seeing me hurt." "No," I said, calm. "I wanted you to win, but I'm not shrinking my life so you feel tall." She looked away dramatically, like someone was filming. "If you were a real brother, you'd come home, or transfer." "I'm struggling." I shrugged. "I'll help you study if you actually want help, but I'm not becoming your emotional crutch." She laughed, bitter and sharp. "You're so selfish. You act like you're above us." I straightened. "No, I'm just not controlled by you." Then I finished it, clean and cold. "You don't miss me. You miss control." Ada's face went red. She spun around, stormed back to the car, slammed the door, and sped off like she had somewhere important to be. I watched the car disappear and thought, okay, she's panicking. Something's going on. After the night Ada ambushed me outside the dorms, I figured she'd cool off and leave me alone. Wrong. A few days later, she texted like nothing had happened. "Hey Leo," with a smiling emoji. "Miss you. How are classes?" I stared at the screen. The emoji was already a red flag. Ada didn't miss people. She missed utility. I answered with one word. "Busy." She responded instantly. "Aw, I'm glad you're doing okay. I've been thinking about you a lot." Right. Then she got to the real reason she reached out. "Can you send me that lab write-up you mentioned last time? I'm taking a similar course and I'm dying over here." There it was. Not even subtle. "No," I typed. "Do your own work." 5 seconds later, her tone flipped like a switch she kept oiled. Wow, selfish. Same old Leon thinking he's too good to help. Dry humor kicked in. "You asked me for cheat sheets, not a kidney." She left me on red, which was fine. The conversation was never about reconnecting. She wanted an academic crutch and expected me to play the role. 2 days later, Jillian, my cousin, messaged me. "I'm pretty sure Ada's cheating," she wrote. "She barely comes to class but somehow gets A's on everything." I wasn't surprised. Ada always treated effort like it was beneath her. But Jillian wasn't guessing. She sent screenshots from Ada's roommate. The roommate recognized a purchased paper Ada had recycled and forwarded receipts and messages from their shared group chat. plus emails where Ada arranged payments for quizzes and assignments. It wasn't subtle cheating. It was sloppy, lazy, and expensive. Exactly Ada's style. "What do I do?" Jillian asked. I told her the truth. "Do what's right. I'm not getting involved." Jillian reported it to the Academic Integrity Office. They launched an investigation immediately. Meanwhile, Hank and Abigail were performing their usual double-life routine. I heard from someone back home that when parents at church asked how I was doing, Hank would smile like a proud politician and say, "Leon's at a top engineering program." We always knew he'd make it. Cute, considering the last thing he told me was to never come back. Abigail chimed in too. "Our son's doing amazing." So dedicated. Dedicated? I was the kid they kicked out like a defective appliance. But apparently bragging rights mattered more than remembering their own words. The investigation into Ada's cheating took about a month, but the rumors started leaking early. Someone in the office knew someone who knew someone, and suddenly whispers spread across her campus. Ada panicked, and like clockwork, she blamed me. On social media, she posted, "Funny how the second my brother leaves, he still manages to ruin my life. Must be nice trying to destroy your own family from miles away." Relatives I hadn't spoken to in a decade messaged me like I'd committed a federal crime. "Why would you sabotage your sister? You always held grudges. Help her instead of tearing her down." I didn't respond to any of them. Explaining myself to people who get their facts from Ada was a waste of oxygen. The official decision dropped 2 weeks later. Ada was expelled for repeated academic dishonesty. The evidence was overwhelming. Paid essay services, purchased test answers, messages confirming she wasn't doing anything herself. Hank and Abigail reacted exactly how I expected. They went full meltdown. They hired lawyers. They claimed the school was targeting her. They cried to anyone who'd listen about unfair treatment. They called it a misunderstanding and harsh punishment for a young woman under stress. None of that worked. Ada was out. And then another piece of information slipped out, one that didn't surprise me but still managed to hit a nerve. Hank and Abigail weren't just aware of the cheating. They'd been paying for it, literally. They funded the essay services, the answer keys, the ghostwriters. They were trying to buy Ada a degree the same way they tried to buy her a future. And when the whole operation blew up, they acted like victims. Ada returned home with a dramatic announcement about how she was starting fresh at community college. Hank and Abigail spun it like she had chosen a humble, noble path. "Our Ada is so strong," Abigail posted online. "She's rebuilding herself," Hank told neighbors. No mention of the expulsion. No mention of the cheating. Definitely no mention of who paid for it. Their mess was on fire, but I wasn't part of it. I didn't owe them anything. Not explanations, not comfort, not silence. Meanwhile, I was preparing for my own graduation. Project deadlines, capstone presentations, and interview rounds were piling up. For the first time in a long time, my future felt like it was taking shape. I was exhausted, but everything I'd built was finally coming together. While they were sinking, I was climbing. And that contrast didn't feel like revenge. It felt like proof that walking away had been the right choice all along. I didn't know it yet, but my next challenge wasn't their chaos. It was the fight for the career I'd bled for. Graduation came faster than I expected. One minute I was sleeping in the library living off loaner computers, and the next I was standing in a cap and gown with an honors cord around my neck. It felt surreal, but also earned. Every late night, every shift, every insult from home, it all stacked into that moment. Hank and Abigail didn't show, obviously. No congratulations, no, "we're proud of you," not even a lazy text. They attended Ada's elementary school honors assembly with more enthusiasm than they ever showed for my degree. I took the diploma, nodded at the applause, and walked out without looking for faces that were never going to be there. A week later, I got the email I'd been grinding for since freshman year. A job offer from one of the top engineering firms in the country. The kind of place Hank used to name drop when bragging about successful people he knew. The irony wasn't lost on me. The offer was good: salary, relocation stipend, benefits, the works. I accepted, signed the onboarding forms, and thought for once something in my life was going to be simple. Of course it wasn't. 2 days before my start date, HR sent the standard background check form asking for my residential address history and an emergency contact. I listed no contact for family and used a friend as my emergency contact. The screening vendor followed up politely, asking for a simple verification of long-term independence. I kept it short. My parents disowned me when I went to college. We're not in contact. I gave them my campus housing supervisor as a reference. 48 hours later, background check cleared, see you Monday. I didn't celebrate. I just exhaled and moved forward. I moved to a new city, Small apartment, cheap furniture, neighborhood that smelled like old coffee and ambition. I started the job with the same energy I'd had in college. Outwork everyone and don't complain. It paid off. Within the first year, I went from entry level to leading a small team. By the second year, I was managing my own project. When you grow up with parents who treat you like wallpaper, hearing coworkers actually value your input feels almost foreign. Life was steady until one random weekend at the grocery store. I ran into someone from my hometown, Matt, a guy I used to sit with in physics. We weren't close, but we weren't enemies. He spotted me in the checkout line. Leon? Dude, no way. He looked me up and down like he'd discovered a rare animal. Heard you moved out here. So you really left your family behind, huh? I blinked. That's what you heard? He shrugged. Ada said you abandoned them, that you wanted nothing to do with them. I let out a short laugh. Funny. They disowned me. Not the other way around. He froze. Seriously? Seriously, I said. They told me not to come back when I chose my college. Ada didn't want anyone outshining her. They supported her cheating. She got expelled, and somehow I became the villain. Matt looked uncomfortable, like he'd just realized he'd sided with the wrong movie character. Man, that's not what anybody back home says. Yeah, I said, because they only hear Ada's script. He didn't have anything else to add. He just nodded, muttered a "sorry, dude," and wheeled his cart away. That moment didn't make me angry. It just confirmed how far their lies had spread. Months rolled into years. Promotions came. My apartment got nicer. My life stopped feeling like something I had to defend. Jillian kept me updated about Ada, usually with messages that started with, "You won't believe this." According to her, Ada bounced around community college classes, quitting half of them, blaming professors for not understanding her potential. Hank and Abigail smothered her with support, acting like she was too special for normal expectations. It didn't surprise me. They built her a world with no consequences. She stayed in it. I didn't hear a word from my parents directly. Not on birthdays, not during holidays, not when I got promoted, not ever. Silence became the default. Then one day, Jillian sent a message. Ada's finally finishing her associate degree. They're throwing a huge party. Everyone's acting like she overcame some massive hardship. I laughed under my breath. Of course they are. A parade for cleaning up the mess they created. Classic. Jillian added, "They're telling everyone it's a big family milestone. Your name's coming up." That got my attention. My family loved rewriting history. They'd been doing it since the day I left, but I wasn't 18 anymore, and I wasn't letting them keep authorship of my life story. I wasn't going back, but I also wasn't staying silent. The truth had been buried long enough. Ada's community college graduation party landed on a Saturday. I was supposed to be relaxing after a 60-hour work week. Instead, my phone buzzed nonstop like it owed me money. Jillian was the first to break through the notifications. "Leon, they're dragging you again," her message started. "It's bad. They're rewriting everything." I replied, "Define everything." She called instead of typing, which was already a sign things were stupid. "You're the villain," she said. "They're telling everyone you abandoned the family, refused to help Ada when she struggled in a toxic school environment, and that you cut ties because you think you're too good." I sighed. Of course. But Jillian wasn't done. "They're saying Ada chose community college to find herself, and that you're jealous she stayed close to family." I laughed under my breath. Dark humor kept my blood pressure down. "Jealous of Ada's academic speedrun to probation? Sure. Leon, I'm serious. People are believing them. Even relatives who know better are nodding along because Hank and Abigail are acting like their version is gospel." I didn't raise my voice, didn't get heated. I just said, "Time to fix the narrative." She exhaled. "You're really gonna do it?" "Oh yeah," I said. "If they want an audience, I'll give them a performance." I hung up, opened the old family group chat that had been dead silent toward me for years, and typed a message. No anger, no theatrics, just facts sharpened into something clean and lethal. "Since you're all rewriting my life again, here's the real version so you don't choke on the lies later. My parents disowned me because I refused to give up my dream school for Ada. Ada didn't choose community college. She was expelled for cheating. She paid for papers and online exams. Hank and Abigail helped fund it. There's a formal finding from her university's academic integrity office. The documentation exists. That's why she ended up back home. Not self-discovery, not a humble restart. Expulsion. I didn't send it yet. I added one more line. As for me, since you keep pretending I disappeared, I've been promoted again. I'm leading a major engineering division at the company you used to brag about, Hank. The one you said, only the best get into. I guess I did. Then I hit send. No typing bubbles, no instant responses, just dead stillness in the chat. Jillian texted me immediately. Oh my God, Leon. The room just froze. Apparently someone at the party had the group chat open, and they read my message out loud. Not dramatically, just quiet, like tossing a grenade onto a dinner table. Jillian gave me the play-by-play through rapid-fire texts. Everyone stopped talking. Hank looks like he swallowed a stapler. Abigail's face is white. Ada is crying, but also yelling? Hard to tell. People are whispering. Your uncle just asked, "Is this true?" And nobody answered. Then, chaos. Full chaos. People are arguing. Someone left early. And I leaned back in my chair, staring at my phone like it was a window into the circus. Another message came. Hank is saying this is a misunderstanding. No one believes him. Abigail is blaming stress. Ada is yelling that you ruined her life by airing private matters. Someone asked why they lied for years. They walked away. I didn't feel triumphant or angry. Just done. Completely done with that fantasy world they kept trying to drag me into. 10 minutes later, the group chat finally woke up. Abigail. How dare you do this tonight of all nights? Hank, you had no right to humiliate your sister. Ada. I hope you're happy. You always wanted to destroy me. You're sick, Leon. Sick. I muted the chat. Didn't bother responding. Their anger wasn't new. It was just louder because their audience finally heard the truth. Jillian texted again. People are leaving. A few relatives pulled me aside and said they had questions about your parents for years. Then, Leon, I think you just blew up the entire family mythology. I typed back, wasn't much of a mythology, just a long-running delusion. She sent a laughing emoji, then a serious one. You did the right thing. They've been lying forever. After that, the night quieted down. I went back to cleaning my apartment like nothing happened. Truth doesn't need applause. About an hour later, my phone lit up again. This time, it wasn't rage. It was desperation. Leon, please answer. We need to talk. You misunderstood everything. We can explain. Please don't do this to us. I ignored them. Clarity had finally caught up to them. Not because they regretted what they did, but because other people saw it. By morning, the tone shifted even more. We're family. We can fix this if you just talk to us. Let's put this behind us. Life is too short for grudges. I miss you. Please respond. The flood of "we care" messages hit harder than their rage, but not in the way they intended. It wasn't love. It was fear. Fear that their story wasn't the official one anymore. I didn't text back, because I knew what came next. It always came in the same order. Denial, anger, shame, guilt, fake reconciliation attempt. And sure enough, later that night, one final message came through. Abigail. We just want our son back. They had no idea how late that sentiment was, but I knew the storm wasn't over. The guilt trip phase had officially begun. The morning after Ada's party meltdown, I woke up to a message from a number I barely recognized. It was my aunt, one of the quiet ones. I saw some of the emails about Ada's situation back then, she wrote. Then she forwarded screenshots from a family damage control thread Hank started when they were drafting appeal letters. He'd CC'd a few relatives for support. The messages showed payments to SA services, plans to cover Ada's tracks, and lines like, as long as Leon never finds out. It didn't shock me, but it tightened something in my chest. It wasn't just true. It was documented. They had receipts. They buried them. My aunt added, I didn't know how deep it went. I thought they'd talk to you. I thought you knew. I'm sorry they put you in this spot. It didn't fix anything, but it validated everything. It gave weight to my decision to step away. It made the family talk ultimatum feel even more like a staged trap. I thanked her, told her she didn't owe me anything, and put my phone down. Not 2 minutes later, the guilt storm hit. First came Abigail's long, emotional paragraphs. She must have written them at dawn, thinking sincerity multiplied when stretched to essay length. Leon, family is all you have. You're breaking my heart. You don't understand how hard parenthood is. I love you so much, even if you can't see it. Please don't ruin us over one mistake. One mistake. That line almost made me laugh. Then Hank chimed in with the cold approach. Short sentences meant to sting. After everything we did for you, you owe us respect. We gave you a roof. You gave us betrayal. You never understood sacrifice. I sat there reading them, feeling nothing except mild annoyance. It was a predictable pivot. Anger hadn't worked, so now they were trying guilt, which always worked on Ada, not on me. I didn't respond right away, so they tried another tactic, rewriting history. Abigail wrote, We never disowned you. You misunderstood. We were hurt, not hateful. Hank added, "We asked you to stay close to support your sister. That's not disowning." I actually did laugh at that one, out loud. These people could look at a tornado ripping through their living room and say, "It was a breeze. You're being dramatic." More messages came. "We didn't choose Ada over you. We tried our best as parents. You're remembering it wrong. You exaggerate everything." They wanted a version of reality where they hadn't cut me off. A version where Ada's failures were tragedies of the universe, not consequences of choices. A version where I was the unstable one who ran away. Then came the reconnect push. "Let's talk. Come visit. Let's put this behind us. We miss you. Your sister wants peace. We should heal as a family." None of it was about me. It was about restoring the image they cared about. They wanted the appearance of a united family, not the work of being one. They wanted me to come home so no one could say, "Where's Leon?" at gatherings. They wanted Ada to feel like she wasn't the only one who messed up. They didn't want me. They wanted the version of me that stayed silent. I didn't give them that. I finally responded with one clean message. "I'll talk when you're ready to admit what you actually did. No lies, no guilt, no flipping the story. Until then, keep your distance." It was a boundary, not a suggestion. Abigail responded instantly. "We didn't do anything, Leon. You're twisting everything." Hank followed. "You're being cruel. This is not how a son behaves." I shook my head. They reacted exactly how I expected. Angry that I wasn't bending. Angry that their guilt didn't stick. Angry that for the first time in their lives, I had leverage they couldn't spin into villainy. They kept pushing. "We're proud of your success. Truly. Are you really cutting us off forever? You're hurting us more than you know. Leon, I'm sorry. Come home. I need my brother." I didn't reply to any of it. I wasn't going to be manipulated by people who only apologized when cornered. A week passed. The messages slowed down. The tone shifted from frantic to resigned. They realized I wasn't coming back. Not on their terms. I kept working, kept building my life. My career kept climbing. My apartment got nicer. My circle stayed small, but I trusted the people in it. Every once in a while, I thought about the idea of parents. Not my parents, just the concept. It would have been nice to have people who backed me, people who asked about my day, people who didn't treat love like a bargaining chip. But sometimes you have to accept you grew up with people who wanted a puppet, not a son. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad either. I was steady. One night, as I finished reviewing project files for a deadline, I realized something simple and freeing. I built everything I have without them. The stability, the future, the respect. It's mine. And I'll never shrink myself again just to fit inside someone else's delusion. When people like Hank and Abigail lose control, they call it betrayal. When you stop letting them rewrite your life, they call it cruelty. When you finally walk away, they call it abandonment. But sometimes walking away is the most honest thing you can do. They wanted their son back. They never realized they lost him the day they tried to break his future to fix Ada's ego. It's been a few years since everything fell apart, though honestly, it didn't fall apart. It finally fell into place. I've got peace now. No fake apologies, no forced dinners, no pretending blood automatically means loyalty. Ada still lives at home, still searching for the next shortcut. Hank and Abigail post old family photos sometimes, pretending things are fine. I don't reply. I don't hate them. I just don't owe them anything. My life is quiet, focused, and mine. And that's enough. And that's the real end of the story. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.